The 80s were pretty crazy, to the point that tried and true form of TV couldn't be used for them. Among other things, the trend of making cartoons to sell toys started strong, basically because it was illegal to do so, at least in the US. But while some products were well done enough to create Ninja Turtles and Transformers, one of the first ones having been Strawberry Shortcake apparently, the vast majority of them, even today, are much worse, like a Generation 2 or Hero Turtles. Hi beautiful people and welcome to another feeling around the dark room that is my mind. Rubik, the Amazing Cube, is an odd, absurd, and ridiculously executed attempt of doing the same for a Rubik's Cube. From the little I was able to see, since there are only 2 episodes available online, the idea is that this cube has powers when solved and was kept by an evil magician until it was found by the children of his family. At least that's what the intro says. It's not exactly a wonderful premise, but execution is what matters. And considering that in that other episodes, the little girl becomes a superheroine, we can expect some very weird stuff. No, I don't mean she used the cube's powers or max-steeled herself into having powers. The cube granted her powers with a beam and then took them away just as easily. So, let's learn what a cube capable of creating courageous champions could conceive as concepts through flakes of crystalline Canadian bacon? We start with the family singing, pure and robotically, Feliz Navidad.
That was a lot of fun, but after 87 times, I get a little bored.
You're bored? I'm so fed up I tore off the tip of my mustache out of anger. By the way, this was a kind of
bon mot.
So that's the level we're in. Don't expect many actual jokes here. And if you thought this was Hanna-Barbera's...
Hero!
Yeah, if you watched Thunder and thought, this cartoon is a bit better than the usual HB, it's because it ain't theirs. It's from Ruby Spears, founded by former HB producers when they thought Hanna-Barbera was doing too much for what they could actually pull off. I wonder why. So they made series like Fang Face, Mighty Man and Yacht. Hey, I never said they wanted variety. And they also made Rickety Rocket. What I'm trying to say is that they did stuff that was more polished, but they weren't that innovative. Eventually they were bought, sold, etc. and then made I suppose I should at least point out that this is from 79 and this is from 83. We're going to see some stereotypes in this episode, but it's certainly not that. But let's go back to the insanity at hand. The older brother gets the younger sister's doll for a joke, and then the terrible Tesseract, twisting time and space with tenuous touch to hover in the air from diminutive dormitory, desiring domination and daydreaming of anything thought to be their objective. Okay, I know it might not seem like it, but look at this! This being flies from inside a pocket they wouldn't fit into, floats in midair and says,
Rubik has fun idea.
And then, with a red beam, they make the doll live. With brand new headlines even.
Hello, Lisa. I'm Rosita.
And the doll starts doing cartwheels and dancing until it hits the dog, and everybody laughs at that, because pranks didn't come out of nowhere. And then Rubik uses a yellow beam, the doll goes back to normal, and they laugh at the dog shaking it, and she looks at the camera again.
Bon mot.
But really, this magic cube just created life. And they don't seem to be controlling her. The doll seems to act by itself and have a personality and accent Rubik doesn't have. Is this from the same people who made Annabelle? The worst part is that the only explanation I can come up with is that this doll was made from the same fabric in Superman's clothes and the beam was red kryptonite. Then, when they see it's gonna turn to shit, Rubik uses golden kryptonite and kills the again inanimate being.
Murder most foul.
Did you like it? 'Cause we'll be right back. So, what's the idea here? The Rodriguez family is going to visit their grandma, who races on a jeep through a desert, uses a CB radio, and flies a plane. And I'm sure she would ski down mountains too. That aside, she
is a real Mrs. Santa Claus
and was able to gather gifts for the city's children. But the truck is stolen by Fonz's Mexican cousin? Well, he kinda floats above a fallen tree or something like that, but he crashes right after that and embeds the truck onto a tree on the side of the road, so I don't think he could jump a shark. Meanwhile, the grandma goes with the kids to look for the truck and we get a detour where they lose their map.
Have you found the road, Reynaldo? Uh-huh, right here.
How in the hell do you know this line is the road instead of the other lines? I'd assume it's the entrance to the Grand Line before that. So Rubik goes after it, after announcing loudly he's going to get it. Why do they still think no one knows about them? No, really, when he comes back, the map is just floating in green energy. Even the parrots noticed the cube was alive as soon as they were seen. If their parents didn't know about Rubik, which seems to be the case, I can only imagine it's because he has used red gold kryptonite to erase their memories. The Cosmic Cube tries to get the map with a green light in the shape of a hand, so maybe he's a lantern? Hey, a planet can be a lantern, so why not? It's not like I'm saying he's a landsman, that would be absurd. But the map falls near a chicken coop, Rubik takes some dirt to the face when asking for it back, and goes in laughing and saying,
Rubik, find you!
And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who thinks this laugh is psychotic, right? If you have any doubt, just look at what happens next. They say they know where the chicken is and lift a whole row of them, no, the hen wasn't one of them, to then use a yellow bean that turns green to transform it into a giant egg. Then again, I think it's only green to hold the map. And then they say,
Oops!
and break the egg with a red bean. They're basically the Pharaoh from Yu-Gi-Oh! But retaining control of their puzzle, being able to use their power without any clear limitations, and still choosing to be the Rodriguez's friends instead of conquering the world or something. The genie from Aladdin. Not Robin Williams, so... Dan Castellaneta? Could be worse. The truck is rescued by real thieves that want to steal the golden jewels from the Mexican pyramids, which confusedly are less Mexican than the ancient ruins where they drop the gifts off, saying something about there being a curse. By the way, when they are driving away, Fonzie and friends see the presents and certainly understand they did something wrong. The grandma is racing towards the crossing they have to go through. By the way, how wonderful that you're the only one with a helmet, Abuela. Nothing like sand scratching your grandkids' corneas, right? But their Jeep has some problems I don't quite understand. Like, the grandma says it's the cables and she has spares, but for some reason they have to push the car and this is going to be an issue, but then Rubik makes them float there in his yellow beam. It's just pretty pointless, it's what I'm saying, and it's probably due to a lack of rewriting. At the crossing, Franz Imbecile tells them about the truck, the grandma decides to stand in the way, Rubik uses a red beam on her, just be glad this doesn't get red with her blood, but the cube decides to stay a few minutes on the way and be run over by a truck that doesn't see him and keep bouncing on the back? What? But the family chases after them on which they use to take a shortcut going up the mountain instead of following the road. Yes, there are smart moments in this complete absurdity. And since they get there before them, they can see the thieves decide to press the little red button? Really? What the hell was that? It's not even the first time. At the truck full of presents part, we see the truck being driven with the gifts before we see it should have been parked waiting for the guys to load the presents into it. In other words, not only is the script completely insane, the production seems to want to keep the same tone and be just as insane. And then we find out the only weakness the colored corner captain has is that they can't move if the sides are scrambled. Which could be a real weakness if he couldn't fly and transmutate any threat. Like, I could see a reboot of this, in which the kids try to unlock their powers, but the puzzle is too much for them, or it might reset after a while. But it's not even a real problem here. As soon as they catch the captor of quantum capacities, the boy solves the cube in seconds.
Good job.
After saving the cube from an eagle's nest, because it's not like they have claws or beaks so sharp you might lose an arm, the grandma borrows a plane. I guess Elastigirl didn't want the biplane. And she starts flying low onto the truck, with the kids there. No, calm down. I know this looks horrible already, but it gets worse. The truck goes slightly off-road while being chased, which shouldn't be much comparatively, and the grandma says they must use their friends because she has always known about them. Meaning, at any moment, Rubik could have stopped the truck, and everything in the story so far was pointless. Rubik levitates the truck, which conveniently took a bit longer to fall farther. The thieves say that must have been the curse, because maybe they hadn't seen where the light came from, or maybe they think going off-road is the curse and the red light was a second chance? Oh, and they try to escape, but Rubik uses his red kryptonite to make their feet big? Not a lot of people know this, but Sideshow Bob used to have regular feet. They see the truck's empty, the boy's pocket is gigantic, making me think this is the same world as Kill la Kill, and the girl gets upset because they don't know where the presents are, even tearing up. And if you think the most bizarre part is over, no. This is the moment. We have something way more bizarre than a telepathic turtle. Rubik goes near the girl's tear and sees the presents in the ruins through the tear. Calm down. There's more. Not only that, because this could be some magic that's extremely convenient. No, Rubik didn't use any of his random colored beans. The tear shined on its own and without any of the colors. And the children can see the presents too. But no. There's more. If it wasn't enough this basically coming out of nowhere, if it wasn't enough this miracle being completely random and possibly solving the whole thing from the start, Rubik has teleportation. Yeah? He takes all of them to the ruins, including the truck, in 1 second. Not only is there a miracle giving them a glimmer of omniscience, they have omnipresence.
An abomination.
Every one of the problems here could have been avoided or resolved way more easily. End of the day, they sing Feliz Navidad again, while they take the presents from the ruins and demonstrate what I mean to say. Rubik can literally get all of the presents, but they let the humans do the work for a while, just to pretend there's a story here. And then they make the truck fly, and stay where the reindeer would be, even without a reason for it. And then they make it snow because the children say there's something missing. Because there's snow everywhere. And then they are shown as Santa, even being where the reindeer would be. Hey, if Santa were a joker, I would bet he had bells. What? Oh, we'll be right back. In general, I can't say the animation's quality is bad for the time. The story, on the other hand, has many moments that are very much insane. And I gotta say that I know some things are very stereotypical here, like Mexico being almost 100% desert.
If I see one more cactus tree, I think I'll die!
Having ruins and pyramids that are maybe 1 hour apart from each other without being part of the same archaeological complex. It kinda reminds me of when Red Baron came to Rio because of a premonition and drove their truck to the Amazon in less than a day. But it seems like a reasonable representation. As a non-Mexican that's never visited Mexico, having some notion of how cultures were represented at the time. I know, I'm not defending that. I'm saying that even a bit off, I recognize a bit of the Latin flavor they tried to put here. Like, there's no reason why the grandma opens the curtains at the start of that scene. None at all. They went to visit her, so it's not like it's not her home. They have sunlight at the start, so it's not like they're letting the sun in at the start of the morning. But at the same time, I think I know where this comes from. When I went to my grandparents' beach house, that was the first thing we needed to do. The house needed to be well closed so no bugs got in, and it needed to be open so the old air could get out. Culture is far from being the ideas that people have been using. There's a lot of projection when someone says every X is Y, for good and for ill. And honestly, the stereotyping here doesn't seem xenophobic or racist. The insertion of Spanish is kinda clumsy here and there.
Come on, kids! Vámonos!
She just said let's go twice. But most of the time, it feels less impersonal than many of the more recent attempts. And this is important because it's very easy to not think about it and just say stereotypical is the same as bigoted. It's what I like to call the Dumbo paradox. There's no way to look at those crows as anything but a horrible representation. But most people forget that in the beginning of that movie, we have black people represented working hard in parallel with the animals that are the main cast, as I see it in an attempt of showing them getting similar treatment. And no, I'm not saying it's correct. I'm saying it's important to know where the mistake happened. That, the way I see it, is an attempt of progress at a time they didn't even know how much regression there was. So we end up with a small positive demonstration separated and kept far from negative stereotypes. And of course, the negative stereotypes will grab your attention more, until you remember they are the ones who solve the issue.
Catch on?
I understand people seeing them as lazy blacks, a stereotype that is unfortunately still very common. But what I see here is the rascal, the guy who always finds a way of solving everything, even if not in a strictly legal or standard way. If you're Brazilian or know our culture, it's what we call malandro here. And again, I'm not saying the whole negative part doesn't exist. On the contrary, it's important to understand the past, even if Disney likes pretending it doesn't exist. Those Pac-Man eyes did not come out of nowhere. This was standard for cartoons. But no one got the costumes we have today without these and thinking about why they didn't work. What we have here is a poorly thought out script at a time the main character's family being Latin was progress. We need more, but we can't pretend it's all or nothing. The villain being a gypsy is not a problem because he's a villain, but because he's not Romani. It might be unpleasant to see something like, we need snow to have Christmas, but it's far from being a person pointing at you and saying, your Christmas isn't real. I'm not a Christian, but I love the Christmassy atmosphere. And I don't have a problem with, say, nativity scenes. No, the problem is when someone says, remember the birthday boy, or the more direct version, you can't celebrate Christmas if you don't believe in Jesus. We have to be smarter than that. I don't like it isn't a reason to attack anyone. We have to fight real problems instead of pretending everyone is a Nazi. Otherwise, we'll spend all of our time fighting about Star Wars and pretending that's gonna bring more female scientists. This episode ended up coming out after Christmas, but what's good in the season should last the whole year. So, happy Saturnalia, Merry Christmas, and may you and yours have good holidays and a year without so much fanaticism. I actually had to stop myself from doing because I wanted this to be a little more Latin oriented, if that makes any sense.